think I spoke too soon.
We needed that, it was good.
I'm kind of just going into this weekend with a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainty.
All right, it is day 2 of semifinals. It is early. We're about to get started with the teams. Then the individuals go. I wanted to ask you guys, who are you rooting for at the semifinals this weekend? Because there's a ton of people going, 3 semifinals. I wanted to hear who everybody is hoping punches their ticket to the CrossFit Games.
Let's do this.
Just wrapped up test 3 for the teams, and it was interesting because I didn't realize just what a difference there was in test 3 between the first heat that went and the second heat, which was the top athletes. So it was 20 teams in each heat, so just 2 heats. That first heat, most people didn't finish, and then the second heat, people finished with plenty of time. So the fitness level between that top heat, the heat that's vying for game spots, versus the bottom heat is insane. It was just crazy to see. But Misfits are looking great. Like, I thought they were gonna podium, but I now, after 3 tests, am convinced that they're gonna win. And I love their spirit. They just seem like they're having so much fun, and I think that makes a big difference. And they're happy. They seem happy. So, loving the vibe of the Misfits team. Individual event 1 for the women is done. Emily Rolfe putting on a clinic in that event. I'm surprised I didn't think about her more going into that. I mean, running, endurance, those are her best things. And she is a bigger athlete, so she was able to handle the sled. And because she was so good on the other things, she just had to do damage control on the sled, and she handled it well. On the other side of the spectrum, she was right next to Rebecca Fuselier, and she struggled so much with that sled. And it was heartbreaking to see because there's nothing she could do. She just couldn't move it. It was too heavy. She's a smaller athlete. We've seen the smaller bodied athletes struggle with that sled pull, and it was awesome to see that she just kept working at it and chipping away, but really unfortunate that she just couldn't move it. Now on to the men. We'll see how they handle the sled. Literally just people lining up trying to get photos with Rich Froning over here in the blue shirt.
For real, for real, for real. my wrist, for real.
Just wrapped up event 1 for the men, and Brent Fikowski just dominated that workout. And going into it, I sort of thought that Brent was going to be the front runner. I think it all lined up to work out well for Brent. He's tall, so I think having that reach is helpful in the run, helpful in the skier, helpful on the assault bike or echo bike. But then also he did really well on the sled. And I feel like him being a very calculated athlete, having an event where there are machines and he can use the times on the machines to his advantage, I think he would be very good at that, and showed it by winning. Teams is a wrap, and I think I spoke too soon because looks like Invictus will probably be in first place after this last event. They were so far ahead, looked so good, very composed after, I think they were a little disappointed after event 3, but looked like they held it all together for event 4, came back and really knocked it out of the park and made themselves look like possible champions. So I think when the scores shake out, they're going to be on top of the leaderboard after day 2, which is ideally where you want to be, on the top of the leaderboard, and that'll be a great place to sit in going into day 3. And maybe the team that we all expected to win at the beginning will end up being the team on top at the end. Just finished up their day with event 2, and at the end of the final heat, it came down to a battle between Arielle Loewen and Alex Gazan, and I think they tied at the end, but it was awesome to see the camaraderie between the two after. They competed together at Wadapalooza this past year, so they're friends. They gave each other a hug. You don't always see that at the end of sports. You do sometimes, but it's always awesome to see the athletes supporting one another and happy for each other's success. That last event, pretty exciting. You were battling it out. What was that like?
So much fun. Me and Alex, you might be able to go back and watch it, but between rounds, we would like fist bump and be like, okay, 2 more rounds of this, 1 more round, send it. So for it to be us 2 at the end going head to head was so much fun. But it got to where it was like one minute left of the last interval, and it hurt so bad. But I was like, I know if I slow down, Gazan is gonna catch me. And then she was getting faster. Just the last 20 seconds hurt so bad, but it was so much fun.
Yeah, I saw you guys hug at the end. What is it like to have
a friend that you're battling it out with?
I feel like all my friends, good friends, are on the West Coast, so it's fun that like I enjoy the people's company here. But me and Gazan were actually teammates at Wadapalooza with Carrie Pierce, so I've competed with her before. I know how good she is at burpees, so it was fun at the end. I knew she was gonna kill it. If I let off at all, she was gonna get me. But it was a lot of fun.
What is it like coming into this event as the front runner?
It's so much fun. I've never came in as the front runner, so me and my husband were talking in the hotel room, and I was like, I'm the girl who I always go in to check in, and I like look at them like, oh my gosh. I was like, I get to be that girl. I was like, okay, I want to be the nice girl. So if people talk to me, I want to talk to them. If someone's sitting by themselves, I want them to feel welcome. So it's fun to be on the other side and hopefully not intimidate people, but make people feel at peace, at ease.
Well, you seem really nice. You're willing to
Thank
this
you.
interview. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Go get ready for tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen, trying to take down Forbes.
Always on go, feel like I'm never home. Pockets on swole, it's time to let it go. Got me going dumb, like I'm illiterate. I got you feeling this heat rise. Have you ever stayed up to the sunshine? Came through fourth quarter in the crunch time. Need to go flee on the run like just one time. Have a fun time. Know you feeling it, I got you feeling it. Know you feeling it, I got you feeling it. I'm going way up like to the moon. Get up and get it, yeah, it's on. When it gets down, I need a
We got 46 rounds.
Did you think it was going to go that well for you?
I had a good feeling. Yeah, I knew. The rings are one of my favorite movements, and burpees obviously pays to kind of be short when it comes to burpees and be able to move fast. So I was like, hey, I got to take my advantage to this one because the rest of it's just heavy weights and stuff.
Yeah, how do you feel about the rest of the weekend?
I feel good as long as I keep executing and doing what I know I can do, fall back on my training, I'll be good to go.
Do you feel good about qualifying?
I do. I feel as good as about anybody who gets qualifying here. So yeah, just got to play my cards right and just keep my mind right.
What is your favorite workout other than this one coming up?
Well, knock on fence or something, but I like to say Linda coming up tomorrow.
Perfect. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're in first right now. Coming in, did you feel good about day one?
Coming into it
Yeah.
without knowing the workouts, everything was questionable for me. And the whole weekend is honestly like, I'm kind of just going into this weekend with a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainty. And we're just gonna see what happens, and you know what, just try to enjoy time out on the floor again. Not to get too sappy, but last year was really hard and I felt really burnt out and I almost quit CrossFit. I think a lot of girls are actually experiencing that this year and maybe in the years past. So for me, it's way bigger than this competition for me. It's way bigger than these events, and honestly, I don't know how the rest of the weekend's gonna go. I haven't deadlifted since quarterfinals. I didn't even touch the sled at all before this whole event started. I did one pistol with the ruck on before this event started, 5 burpees with the ruck on before this event started. So there's just so many unknowns. So I'm just honestly just happy to be here. I feel like I'm a walking miracle right now, and I have to give the glory to God.
Do you feel like your happiness and your positive attitude is having an impact on your performance?
Absolutely. I think it's everything. Like if you're not having fun, then your body is not going to recover as quickly. Everything's just going to be tighter, and nothing's going to relax. And that's kind of what I experienced out at Wadapalooza in 2022. I wasn't having fun on the floor, and it was really hard. I was like crying before each day and just trying to figure out why I wasn't having fun and why I wasn't happy. And I think my back took a toll after Wadapalooza, and obviously I was out for the whole season in 2022. And I've been riding this roller coaster ever since. But yeah, so this is literally just icing on the cake, just being here. So I'm excited to share my story. I'm doing a documentary, and because people, you don't know what other people are going through, and this is yeah, it's been a really, really tough year for me. Even last week, I didn't get to do much because my back was super tight. So I'm beyond grateful to be here.
Well, it's awesome to see you happy and doing well, and
Thank
good luck
you.
the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
Day 2 is a wrap, and let me tell you, day 2 was definitely better than day 1. And I think that's just because we have so much more going on, and on the team side, the leaderboard is actually starting to shape up, and we're getting a real idea of who may be going to the CrossFit Games. Because day 1, teams, individuals, both, the leaderboard after 2 events is not very clear and could have some outliers on it, because you could have somebody who has an event they just, hit a home run on, but they're not going to be nearly as good on the rest of the events. So things are a little bit imbalanced. Day 2 for every competition, you start to get the real picture. So let's talk about the teams first. So if we take a look at the leaderboard, the top team is the team I initially predicted. And Misfits had me second guessing that for a moment, but now turns out I think I was originally right. CrossFit Invictus is likely going to win this semifinal and get back to the games on their hunt for the top of the podium, not just at semis, but also at the games. They right now are ahead 391 points over CrossFit Franco's Misfits with 376. And a lot of that point spread is based off of the 4th event today. So CrossFit Invictus took a 1st in that event, and CrossFit Franco's Misfits took an 8th. Although I have to say that event had those big box jumps, and for like an athlete like Alexis Johnson on Misfits, that box was huge. Like, she had to back up to jump over it each time. So it is an event that just, there was no amount of fitness, I believe, that could have helped certain people on an event like that. If you're a shorter athlete, like, you're likely going to struggle. Although we did see some shorter athletes on the individual side really take care of that box and do well. But it was the rest of the event that made that happen. I think when you partner a high box with something like rowing and ski erg, it is going to favor a taller athlete, because the other 2 elements, or there's also the dumbbell snatch, but most of the other elements really favor a taller athlete. You can get that big pull on the rower and the ski erg, and you have longer limbs and taller height to get over the box. So for Misfits, I think that some of their athletes just really weren't built well for that workout, but I don't think that should take away from Invictus doing so well, because Invictus has done really consistently throughout the weekend. If we take a look at their finishes, it's a 1st, a 3rd, a 2nd, and a 1st. I mean, your lowest finish is 3rd, you deserve to likely win the competition, because there are 40 teams. You're dominating. Where Misfits has a 2nd, a 1st, and an 8th. So also really good positions, but they have a couple, or 1, lower position than, significantly lower than Invictus. But Misfits is technically still within striking distance, so it's definitely a race we still need to keep our eyes on, but I think we're starting to see Invictus pull away. But 3 points behind Franco's Misfits is Omnia. Those 3 teams are starting to put some distance between themselves and the rest of the field. With 2 more events, it's looking pretty good for those 3 teams being on the podium. But what order still has to be seen. Let's go through the rest of the teams that are currently in a qualifying position real quick. So we have CrossFit Kilo 2, CrossFit Invictus Unconquerable, CrossFit Invictus Sea of Green, Coda CrossFit Redemption, Rhino CrossFit Dogs, Verdant CrossFit, and Undefeated CrossFit. So for the most part, most of those teams are teams we expected to be doing well at this point, and they are doing well. And there's not really many teams lower that we had strong anticipations of making it to the games. So I think the team competition is shaping up to look like a little bit like what we expected. But we do have some races for where people are going to end up. And there is a tie between 10th and 11th. So there is some close races. I just feel like a lot of the teams that are in the race are the teams we expected to be.
All right, let's go over to the women next. So I feel like the women's leaderboard is a little bit of a surprise. A little bit, because there are a lot of people that are in places we anticipated, but the top person, Bethany Shadurne. I personally didn't expect that. I had her on my people to watch list, but I think that's because we had a lot of unknowns with her. And if you heard the interview I got with her, which she was fantastic in that interview, and I just saw her, she was walking her dog outside of the arena, and she did the interview with me, which I am so appreciative of when people are willing to talk to me, even though I'm not like a big name, but she was awesome. And what she said in the interview is she didn't know what she was gonna look like this weekend. And she doesn't know what the rest of her weekend is going to look like. So I'm surprised to see her at the top of the leaderboard. And it sounds a little bit like she's sort of surprised because she didn't test many of these workouts and didn't really know how her body was going to respond to them, and doesn't really know how her body's gonna respond to stuff tomorrow like Linda. So we'll see if she maintains a top spot, but right now she already has 173 points. If you take a look over last week in the East Regional, the last place qualifier for the women had 386 points. So she already has about half of that in the first two events. It puts her in a really great position to possibly make it back to the CrossFit Games after being pulled for illness in 2021 and not qualifying in 2022 or competing really because she had a back injury. I'm excited to see Bethany the rest of the weekend and see how she holds up, and she seems to be having fun. And I think fun and happiness are the most important things anyway. So now as we go down this leaderboard, things look a little bit more like we expected them to. So we have Alex Gazan in second, and third is Arielle Loewen. And Alex Gazan and Arielle Loewen were battling it out on that last event, actually tied in points, but Alex Gazan won on the tiebreaker, which is how many reps were accumulated in the first set of burpee box jump overs. And I spoke with Arielle, also was so kind. I happened to see her while I was walking to Starbucks, and I ran her and her husband down. She's like, you could take a breath. So I was like out of breath, so like jogging to catch up to them. And she was totally willing to do it. Like when I came up, she's like, oh, you want a photo? I'm like, actually, I want an interview. And she was happy to do it, which was awesome. And she just seemed so friendly, and that seems to be something that she wants to be. And I think she's doing a great job at it, but also doing a great job at being an awesome CrossFitter and having an awesome attitude. So she is currently in third. She has a 20th finish in that first event and a second in the second event, which I just explained. That first event for the individuals, based on some information that I saw the Barbell Spin put out, last week was an outlier workout. So 20th, it's not great, but it's also not horrible in a 60-person field, and I think she's only going to go up from here. That could be her worst finish, and we might want to still keep our eyes on Arielle, who was the front runner coming in, to be the winner at the end of the weekend. There's still very much a possibility of that. And Alex Gazan, she's leading Arielle by 13 points, so we shall see. But Bethany is up on her by another 13 points. It'll be fun to see how this leaderboard shapes up the rest of the week. Let's go down it a little bit to talk about who's also in a qualifying position and then who's not in a qualifying position. Fourth, we have Christine Kohlenbrander. Fifth, we have Emily Rolfe, who destroyed that first workout, and it felt like it was made for someone like her. In sixth, Katrin Davidsdottir. I think a lot of people would be excited to see her make her way back to the games. Seventh, Stacy Larum. It's like the first time I've said her name and probably the last. Like I said, anyone who makes semis is an awesome athlete. I just don't think Stacy is a games athlete. She had a first in the first workout and then a 40th in the second workout. So I'm thinking workout one was an outlier for her, and she's probably going to fall farther from the top 10 as we go on the weekend. Eighth, and this is like a blast from the past, China Cho, who's already qualified for the games as a masters athlete in the 35 to 39 division. I believe she qualified in first. It'll be exciting to see China Cho in the top heat and would be crazy if she's in the top 10 at the end of the weekend. Not crazy like she doesn't deserve it, but surprising. We have Hannah Block in 9th. She also had a great finish on event 1 and then a 40th on workout 2. And in 10th, another name that we haven't seen in a while on the individual side, Lauren Fisher, who has a 32nd in that first event, which, like we've talked about, tends to be an outlier event, and then a 6th in the second event. So she's someone we got to keep our eyes on the rest of the weekend to, more likely than not, crawl her way up the leaderboard versus down. Because there's a couple people, Stacey Larum, Hannah Black, that I expect to be going the opposite direction. In 11th, just 1 point back of Lauren Fisher is Sydney Mikulishin. 1 point back of Sydney is Olivia Kerstetter in 12th. Also tied in 12th, same points, Bailey Rail. So you've got a lot of athletes and a lot of big names that are right behind that top 10. I wouldn't read too far into day 1 leaderboards. Like some of these athletes we're talking about who are just right outside right now, Sydney, Bailey, Olivia even, they could be well within the top 10 tomorrow when we have 3 more scored events. A couple other names that I would just want to mention real quick. Kelly Baker, she is in 15th right now with a 22nd and a 15th, which are fairly consistent finishes among both workouts. Rebecca Fuselier is in 23rd, and this is actually great for her in my opinion, because after event 1, she was sitting in 59th, second to last. She struggled with that sled. It was almost painful to watch. She just couldn't move it. She's a smaller athlete and it just wasn't budging. And she was right next to Emily Rolfe, who was smashing the workout. And I felt a little bad for her, but inspired by how she kept pushing despite the adversity she was facing. And since she was at 58th after event 1, she's now in 23rd. So she's made up so many points with just 1 workout to try and fix that. And it's a long weekend. So she got 4th in the second workout. I would keep my eye on Rebecca to potentially climb. Although, like, I do wonder about her on the events tomorrow. How is she gonna handle Linda? It's very heavy. How is she gonna do on a max snatch among a really strong field? Maybe better than she would if it was just a straight up max snatch, because there is that cardio element before it that may help her. And then the second part is a sprint, and I worry about that too, because there's an 8 snatch buy-in with 125 pounds, which is basically what she weighs. And even if she handles that, I feel like the air runner benefits a bigger athlete who can really like control the belt a little bit better. I think day 3 will be better for her, but she's in 23rd now, so you don't really want to dig yourself into a hole. So I'm hoping she surprises me. She did awesome on event 2. Chloe Wilson is in 24th, Allison Scuds in 29th, Trista Smith, who is 17 years old and is already qualified as a teen athlete, she's in 34th. I think she's mostly just here to get experience, so hopefully she enjoys the experience. I don't think she'll be qualifying for the games. And then we have Jen Ryan, also already qualified for the games as a masters athlete. She's in 44th. Kelly Clark is someone we were looking at to possibly qualify after she got so close last year, but is currently sitting in 45th. And here's probably the most surprising one. Freya Moosberger is currently sitting in 50th. Although I will say, when I previewed semifinals, I pointed out that I thought she was gonna struggle on the muscle up workout, and she came in 54th. So I think I hit the nail on the head there, unfortunately. And I didn't know how much she would struggle on the first one, but she was in 39th in that one. So she's got a upward climb. And I think sitting in 50th after day 1, I would bet against her to qualify. But you never know. Okay, and finally, let's move over to the men's field. And I was surprised to see who was in first, but definitely surprised in a good way. In first place, we have Brent Fikowski, the professor, and he did great on event 1. I feel like that event he is very well built for. He's a similar athlete to Emily Rolfe, and we saw a similar or exactly the same result there.
And then I was a little bit surprised to see how well he did on the gymnastics event. And I think part of that could be because he could plan, and he's a very analytical guy, so I think he had the opportunity to look at all these events and to plan for the ring muscle-ups and find a way to move correctly to get those done efficiently, and he did a great job at that. And I think he's an athlete suited well for these tests where we know the tests maybe better than some other people, because he is calculated, and he calculated it out, and he calculated himself a first place finish at the end of day one. Awesome. Awesome to see Brent Fikowski making his way back to the top of a leaderboard, and could very much win this semifinal. And it would be awesome to see him carry this momentum into the CrossFit Games. Although I wouldn't count out the guys behind him right now. Though he does have a bit of a points cushion, 24 points. In second place, we have Cole Grieshaber, who I believe I had qualifying for the games this year, but definitely not on the podium. We'll see how he holds up throughout the weekend. I think these two events suited him pretty well, especially the gymnastics one. But we will see as we get into Linda and the 1 rep max snatch, how he does there. I don't think he's not going to qualify. I'm just not sure if he'll be second at the end of the weekend. In third, we have Mitchell Stevenson, who I was a little bit surprised to see in third, but he's got a 7th and an 8th place finish, very consistent. And in fourth, we have the champ, Justin Medeiros, and he is only 30 points out of first place. I wouldn't count him out. I would still bank on him winning, right? He's won every in-person competition he's done in the last 2 years. I would just have to still pick him. He's still very much within reach of the top of the podium. Maybe day one wasn't his things, but he got a 6th and a 10th, which aren't awful finishes anyway. And we saw Jeff Adler last week. His worst finish was 10th. I believe he may have had 2 of those. So you can afford a 10th and end up on the top of the podium. John Wood is in 5th. I don't really know John Wood. So awesome for John. In 6th, Pat Vellner, the other Canadian we have here, 15th and a 3rd. Did great on the gymnastics, not surprised there. 15th, that's fine. That's not Patrick's best type of event anyway, so I think he should be pretty pleased with those 2 finishes. 7th, we have Nick Matthews. 8th, Samuel Quant. 9th, Chandler Smith. And 10th, Scott Tetlow, who I spoke to after he won event 2. He tied with Colton Mertens, but he got the tiebreaker. And he seems like he thinks Linda is going to be a good workout for him. So we'll have to keep an eye to see if he can continue to make a push for the CrossFit Games in Linda tomorrow. And we only have 9 men qualifying out of the West. So Scott Tetlow is just 1 point out of qualifying. Then we have Rafael Sanson, who I'm told is a really great Mexican athlete who has a legitimate chance of making it to the games. Only 2 points out of a qualifying position. Then we have Colton Mertens in 13th. And I think that first event was going to be possibly his worst event. So we may see him start to creep up the leaderboard a little bit. Cole Sager is in 14th, and having qualified for 9 consecutive CrossFit Games, I would just expect him to continue to move up the leaderboard and do what he has to do to make it back. So keep an eye on Cole. Scrolling down the leaderboard, looking for names that we may not expect to be so low. 41st, Tudor Magda. He's got a 57th and a 24th finish. I don't have high hopes from qualifying after that. It's kind of some hard finishes, but keep an eye on him. Maybe he can make a push, but I would not expect it. Little Franco is a guy some people had their eyes on. He is currently in 46th, so you probably don't have to keep as close of an eye on him anymore. And William Leahy IV is a name some people were keeping their eyes on as well. He has withdrawn. I believe he was not feeling very well, so he is out for this year. He's still young though, so someone to look out for in the future. Anyway, that is a wrap on day 2. Day 3 I expect to be just as packed as day 2 was. We are going to be punching some tickets to the CrossFit Games for the 10 teams, so that'll be exciting. We'll have some podiums.
And then we're going to start to really see the individual leaderboard shape up after day 2 before they have their final day of competition. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like. I appreciate you all for watching so much. Subscribe if you're new here, and leave a comment below if you have something to say. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.